This lesson is find and explicit descriptions of null A by listing vectors that span the null space. This is the matrix A. I rewrote it right here. One more time. This is the matrix A. I rewrote it here. The last column is 0 because we are looking for the vector that span the null space. So this column 0, this extra column of 0 is this 0 right here. One more time. This is matrix A, which I wrote it here. The last column of 0 is this 0. And the reason why it is 0 because we are looking for the vector that span the null space. In another word, we are solving for x. We are looking for all of the vectors of x that span the null space. One more time. We are solving for x, or we are looking for all of the vectors of x that span the null space. That is the reason why we must put another column of 0 so that we can solve for it. Okay, one more time. The extra column of 0 is because of this 0, and we are solving for all of the vectors of x that span the null space. Okay, so now we do row operation. This is already a 1, so we leave the first row alone. Next, there's nothing here, so we leave this column alone. Next, this is the third column, so we have something, so multiply the reciprocal so that I can get a 1. So 1 over 2 times 2 gives me this 1. Next, there's nothing to do, so list this spot right here, so we leave that alone. However, we do have something above this 1, so we need this to be a 0. Again, we have something above this 1, so we need this 4 to become 0. So opposite of 4 will be negative 4. So negative 4 times 1 will be negative 4. Negative 4 plus 4 gives me this 0. And as you can see, this is already done. This column, there's nothing to do, leave it alone. This column, we have a 1, and this is a 0, so we are done. This column is already done, so we leave it alone. After that, we will write out our terms. Okay, so x1 minus 6x2 equals 0, which I wrote here. One more time. X1 minus 6x equals 0. That's right here. Now solve for the first term, which gives me 6x2. Next, this column is x2, but there's nothing here, so we say x2 free. Because there's nothing here, we say free. Next, this column, I have something, so x3 equals 0, which I wrote here. Next column, because this is a 0, so and this is x4, so free. One more time. This is x4, because it is 0, it is free. So we have two free spots, which is x2 and x4. Okay. After that, we will list out all of the terms of x2. We will list out all of the terms for x4. One more time. List out all of the terms for x2. List out all of the terms for x4. So x2, the first term of x2, which is 6. And that's where the 6 comes from. One more time. The first term of x2 is 6. So this is where the 6 comes from. Next, second term of x2. Because it is free, I will put 1. Every time when it is free, put 1. One more time. This is the second term of x2. But x2 is free, so I put 1. There is no third term for x2, 0. There is no fourth term for x2, 0. Move on to x4. First term of x4, there isn't one, 0. Second term of x4, 0, because there's nothing. Third term of x4 is 0 because there's nothing. Fourth term of x4, however, x4 is free, so 1. Every time when I see free, 1. One more time. First term of x4, 0 because there's nothing. Second term of x4, 0 because there's nothing. Third term of x4, 0 because there's nothing. Fourth term of x4 is 1. Where the 1 come from? Because it's free. So these two vectors of x is what we are looking for that span the null space. One more time. These two vectors of x that span the null space. Okay, so when we are looking for the vectors that span the null space, we need to put an extra column of 0 so that we can solve for x, which we have here and here. Do row operations, and then after that, list out my terms. Put all the terms belong to x2, put all the terms belong to x4, and so on. And that will be our vectors of x that span the null space. Okay, so that's the first example. Second example is the same thing. So here is my original matrix, and I wrote it down right here. Okay, this is the original matrix, and I wrote it down right here. The last column is 0 because this is a 0, and the reason again why we have a column of 0 because we are solving for vectors that span the null space, or in another word, we are looking for all of the vectors of x that span the null space. Okay, so that's where the extra column of 0 is. Again, if we are looking for vectors that span the null space, we need this extra 0 so that we can solve for it. Okay, and as you look carefully, this spot is already solved. There's nothing here, so we leave it alone. This spot is already solved because it's a 1. This spot, there's nothing here, so we leave that alone. This spot is already solved, so everything in this matrix is already solved, so we don't have to do row operation. One more time. This spot is already solved, so we leave it alone. This spot, there's nothing, so we leave it alone. This spot is already solved, we leave it alone. This spot, there's nothing, we leave it alone. This spot is already solved, so we leave it alone. So in this situation, all of this is already solved, so there's no need to do row operation. Now we just list out our terms. So x1 minus x2 plus 4x4 equals 0, which I have here. x1 minus 2x2 plus 4x4 equals 0, which I have here. Now solve for the first term. So bring the 2 over, bring the 4 over. So negative become positive, positive become negative. Next, this right here, there's nothing. So x2 is free. Because there's nothing here, x2 is free. Third, this is x3. x3 minus 9x4 equals 0, which I have here. x3 minus 9 equals 0, minus 9 for x4 equals 0, which is here. Solve for x3, I have 9x4. So negative become positive. Next, the fourth column, since there's nothing here, it is free. Next, this is the fifth column, so x5 is 1, so 1 equals 0 right here. One more time, this is the first column, which is x1. I list it here. This is column 2, x2, since there's nothing, it is free. Third column, x3, I do have something, so minus 9x4, which is here. Solve for that third term. Fourth column, which is x4, since there's nothing in x4, free. And then the fifth column, I do have something in fifth column, which is x5. So x5 equals 0, which is here. Now list out all of the terms from each x. One more time, list out the terms for each x. So first term of x2, which I have here. First term of x2, which is 2. Second term of x2, since it is free, I put 1. No third term of x2. No fourth term of x2. No fifth term of x2. So that's why all these are 0. Third, fourth, and fifth, because there's no term for x2, 0. Move on to the next x, which is x4. First term of x4, I have right here, negative 4. First term of x4, which is negative 4. That's where the negative 4 comes from. Second term of x4, there's nothing, 0. Third term of x4, I do have it right here, which is 9. Fourth term of x4, because it's free, 1. Fifth term of x4, there's nothing, so 0. So that's how you list out each term for its x. Okay, so list out all the terms based on the x. And these are the vectors that span in null space. Okay, one more time. These are the two vectors that span the null space. So first example, okay, which is the same procedure. Second example, same procedure. Okay, so be very careful when it says find the vectors that span the null space. You must put an extra column of 0 so that you can solve for the x. One more time, when it says find the vectors that span the null space, you must put another column of zeros so that I can find or solve the vectors that span the null space. Same thing with down here. I am looking for the vectors that span the null space. So I have to put another column of 0 so I can solve for the vectors that span the null space.